Shalom, Yasha'Allah. Give me 1 second. I'm going to just do a technical test real quick just to make sure we're getting some audio. All right, Most High in Christ. Audio's good. Y'all bear with me 1 second. I'm just erasing the board for today's class, then we'll get started. Give me a real eraser in this moment. So in our Hebrew classes, we've been recently going over some basics, but I want to go ahead today and finish up previous class series that we had started about a month and a half ago. And that would be our Psalm chapter 83, Lashawan Kodash breakdown. That's what we're going to be putting on the screen here today. I'm trying to get most of this off. Hold on. Of course, as you know, now's the time. Definitely post your questions in the chat. If you have any particular vocabulary words that you want us to go over, remember, it has to be a word that is actually in the Old Testament. There are words that were added later on in the Greek and Latin. But when we read the Lashawan Kodash, we're talking about a dialect that pretty much you only see in the Old Testament with the vocabulary that you see that is according to the Strong's wording system. All right. And so that's going to be our basics. Again, Yahweh Shem Yahushai Brakatam. Yahweh Shemalatam Ba'Shem Yahushai. This is the Isupk. It started out at 1 West, 125th Street, Harlem, New York, 1969. We're under commanding General Yahano. And we're here to teach the truth of the Bible that so-called Black, Hispanic, and Native American Indians are the real Israelites according to the scriptures. It is Friday, which is, of course, our ancient Hebrew class. Our Lashawan Kodash class is designed to give us a better understanding of a more accurate understanding of our actual language. This is absolutely important to when it comes to being an Israelite, to then start to build on our vocabulary. I tell you right now, learning the Bible is a task in itself. Learning the Lashawan Kodash is a whole different level of challenge because, one, you are learning the Bible, but you're also learning it in an ancient language. And when you do that, it gives you even more understanding of the Bible as we study it, which is why it's so important for us to have the Lashawan Kodash class and also Sabbath services as another example of some of our practical uses. The other times you'll see us use the Lashawan Kodash is during our high holy days. And during our high holy days, where we come together, we are pretty much reading the way that we do during the Sabbath service, but on a massive scale, where we're going into any particular part of the Bible, whether it be in the book of Exodus during the Passover, if it is any of our other feast days where we read the Lashawan Kodash prayers, those are all things that you typically see in our school, which is the standard. It is definitely the standard that all of Israel ought to follow, but they also should be following it through the Isupk and not really try to look into other outlets because it could be diluted. So we have a standard that we have to set And so in the Isupk, we're going to continue to go further into everything that we do. Now, we've gone through 5 classes already, breaking down Psalm chapter 83. So this is not a new class or endeavor that we've been covering. This is something that we've been going on to. In fact, we've pretty much covered about 3 verses every class, where it could take almost an hour to break down 3 verses completely. And you'll see why I'm doing that in the way that I do that here in a minute, because I want to go word for word. I want to look at the root words of every phrase. I want to get a better understanding of how the sentence structure comes to be when using our prepositions, our possessive adjectives, and then perhaps I may clean this up and reintroduce it on the screen in a more organized way later on. But we definitely need a lot of room when we write. And so I want to make sure that we do that. So we're going to go to Psalm chapter 83, and I'm going to go all the way to where we're at, verse 16. 16, 17, and 18 should finish up the chapter, and thus finishing up the prayer, Psalm chapter 83. And then, of course, at some point, we may go into one of our other prayers. But Psalm chapter 83 is our longest prayer that we read during our Sabbath services. And so, quite honestly, 5 or 6 classes to cover that in its entirety it's reasonable, okay? Because of how in-depth we want to give you the information. And in fact, if you're on Isupk San Antonio's Facebook page, know that our YouTube channel is available as well. Some of our audience members join us on Isupk San Antonio via YouTube. And on our YouTube page, you could go to our playlist and you can watch the Psalm chapter 83 breakdown from the very beginning, where we have it in order from part 1 all the way up to part 5 currently. And then shortly after this is uploaded, it'll be added to that playlist to round it off. So what we're going to do here today is, again, Psalm chapter 83. We're going to finish this up. We're going to start at verses 16. Okay. I'm going to start at verse 16. Hebrew is again read from right to left. Before we get started, I'm gonna go ahead and share the class. Well, you know what? Let me write the scripture first. That way, y'all can take a look at it while I have that going. Psalm chapter 83. And we're gonna go to verse 16. Now, what I do is I typically write down the scriptures on the fly, translating them from the modern Hebrew that you'll see on the Bible Hub app. As you can see here, the Bible Hub app looks kind of like this. I'm actually translating it to the Lashon Kodash, which is the ancient characters on the fly. So we're going to actually do that. So we have Ma, La'ah, then we have Pan Yaham, we're going to, of course, explain all these words and translate them so that you can have it all on the screen, but I want you to see the Hebrew first. And we have Qualawan, Waya Bakwashwa. And we have Shamak, or Shamkat, it's like it. And what you notice is that we're used to actually reading these every weekend. So learning how to read it in the Hebrew is incredible, because the only people that are actually seeing the transliteration into English when this is being read during the Sabbath service or on the high holy days are the priests that are up front. Priest number 1 and priest number 2 have it written out in an easy way to understand. But taking it to the next level, means, and this is what we want to present to you, is showing it to you like this, and then you being able to pronounce it. Pronouncing it is important because as a baby, when you first learn how to say anything, you're saying words before you understand exactly what they mean. Babies, they tend to babble. They tend to copy the wording and the mouth sounds that people are making that are around them, right? And that's how they learn any particular language that they grow up around. It's not so much they understand everything that is being said to where it automatically they know exactly what it means. They may say mama or dada and recognize it as a person, but as they go along, there are more complicated words. There are objects. There are different types of foods, different types of things that they need, and eventually sentences that they're able to put together based off of how they know how to pronounce it. And then even in some cases at their early stages, learning the alphabet, learning what the characters look like, knowing how to pronounce the characters when they see them, and then also hearing them and knowing what to write. So you got to be able to deconstruct the language in a way where you can learn it front to back. And what I mean by that is being able to see mala'a, panyaham, kwalawan, waya bakwashwa, to be able to see it and then say it, or hear it and then write it, or see it and then translate it. We want to be versatile like that. If we want to take back our culture, we got to take back the language. We got to take back everything because it was all taken from us. Now we're taking it back. The Most High says in the scriptures, he says the saints will take the kingdom. Well, that kingdom includes a language. And this is the language that we in the Isupk and the commanding general Yahada and the men that created this school before us, they set the foundation of everything that we're looking at right here on this page here, on this screen, during this live stream. And of course, all of these are the same exact phrases that we read every Saturday, but now you're actually seeing the visual side of it, and that's what makes this all come together. All right, so Shamka is the next character or the next phrase. Shamka. Sham means name. Like when we say Bahasham, it means in the name. Shamka means your name. Of course, we're going to break that down in a minute. Let's go ahead and get the Most High's name. How? I'll briefly break down the Lord's name here in a minute as well. All right, because it visually represents something. So we want to actually take a look at that. All right, let's start with what we got here on the screen. I don't want to go writing the whole 3 verses all at once. I want to kind of focus on what we're looking at right here. All right, so what are we looking at? What is this actually saying? Mala'a. Mala'a is the first word or first phrase. It says fill. This is H4390. For those of you that need the proof, you can type H4390 on YouTube or any browser. It should pretty much show you that. It says fill, or to be filled, or to fulfill, or to complete. You understand? Mala'a. Mala'a means to fill or to be full, including the physical filling of spaces, the fulfillment of time or promises, and the completion of tasks or duties. The word can also imply abundance or being fully satisfied. You understand? So it's used in both a literal and a metaphorical sense. So it says fill, okay? Now it's going to say pan yahum. Pan yahum. Pan yahum is the next word. It says, now we know panya, I believe panya, the root word 6440, panyam, there we go, H6440. Panyam means faces. Yam, again, means it's a plural, okay? So when you see yam, or yan, plural. Masculine or plural, feminine. Panyahum. Notice that it says pan, instead of panyam, there's a ha that's thrown in the middle of that, okay? That's the rule there that's used. So face, presence, countenance, or before. So it says fill their faces. This is the entire root word. This is panyahum with a break right there. Panyam is the root word here, which means face or faces. Panya is actually how you pronounce face, as in one face. But because it's a plural, there's a panyam that's used, but then there's a ha that's in the middle of it. Panyahum is their faces. So what is it that they're filling their faces with? Now, they're not physically filling their face. It's actually changing the countenance. And that's exactly what it says when we look at the definition, H6440. A face could mean the countenance of something. Doesn't necessarily mean the literal face, the physical face, but the way that that face has been altered. Okay. But what is it that they're being filled with? Well, it says Kuala One, which is the next one. Kuala One, and I believe the entirety of it is the root word. Kuala One, which means disgrace or shame. This is H7036. All of these are vocabulary words that you can add to your vocabulary. Fill, face, shame. Shame / disgrace. Just to give you another version of the same word. Fill their faces with disgrace, meaning what? We just got through reading, and I'm gonna briefly read Psalm chapter 83, verse. We'll start at verse 11. Psalm chapter 83 and verse 11 says, "Make their nobles like Oreb and like Zeeb. Yea, all their princes as Zebah and as Zalmunna." So now it's saying make their celebrities, make their rich people, and then it starts to give examples of situations of people in the past that historically had animosity against Israel. So it names them Oreb, Zeeb, Zebah, Zalmunna. These are ones who, and in verse 12 explains what it is that these nobles of the other nations did. In verse 12 it says, "Who said, let us take to ourselves the houses of God in possession," meaning takes Israel into captivity. The houses of God, meaning the families of Israel, into their captivity, meaning possessing them and controlling them and putting them and belittling them and assimilating them into their societies and possibly even giving them a place in their society, but also at the same time, putting them in a lower class, or maybe even keeping most of them in a lower class while taking some of them and raising them up to be a bad example for the others in exchange for gifts and status in their society. And so they've constantly taken us as possessions. These are examples: Oreb, Zeeb, Zalmunna, Zebah. Verse 13 says, "Oh my God, make them like a wheel, as the stubble before the wind, as the fire burneth a wood, and as the flame set the mountains on fire." The Most High is being prayed to by, I believe it's King David, and where he says, "Make them like a wheel as the stubble before the wind, as the fire burneth a wood, and as the flame set the mountains on fire." Talking about destroying them, okay? And that's why once you get to verse 15, it says, "So persecute them with thy tempest and make them afraid with thy storm." And that's exactly what you're going to see with these other nations, that constantly being bombarded with natural disasters, constantly bombarded with tempests and typhoons, with storms like hurricanes in their rich areas, fires that are breaking out in California. We just saw an earthquake that was a 7.0 magnitude earthquake that just killed 100 people out there across the world. And these are, earthquakes are going to happen in diverse places, whether they be supposedly innocent or not. The Most High is allowing these things to happen across the planet because nothing happens anywhere on earth without God's approval. And that's what you have to understand, is that even the negativity that happens across the earth is controlled ultimately by the Lord, because no entity is going to move on anything without God's permission. He is the Most High. who ultimately ordains for everything that happens, good or bad. That's what people need to understand, and that's why people need to fear the Lord. And so when King David is praying that the conglomerates that come against Israel be destroyed, this is exactly what he's saying. Fill their faces with shame and disgrace. It says that they may seek thy name, O Yahweh. That they may seek thy name, O Yahweh. Let's get that. So that they may seek. Why Yahbakwashwa? Root word. Let's get the root word first so we can understand what we're looking at. 1, 2, 4, 5. So bakwash. This is the root word right here. Bakwash. So this is the root word, which means to seek, to search, to request, or to desire. To seek or seek. That they seek that they seek, or they may seek, when you look at the translation in English, that they may seek. Preposition, yeah, whatever. Okay. Your name. Your is the same thing as thy. And so this rule does apply as a possessive adjective because the root word is sham, which is name. Boom. Again, Hebrew is read from right to left, so don't try to read this backwards. Read it from right to left. So though I have it sectioned off, fill their faces with shame. I guess I could put that with shame. That they seek your name or thy name. And then we say the Most High's name, Yahweh. Yahweh. The Lord's name is not to be played with. It is not to be altered. It is not to be disrespected or modernized. And that's the problem with society nowadays, is they want to try to modernize the Lord. They start using new characters. Jehovah, Yahida, Yahi. I've seen so many different weird Yehuda. Where the heck did that come from? Where did the D come from in there? Because there's Yah, Ha, Wa, and Ha. There's only 4 characters. None of those are vowels. They're all consonants. Hebrew is actually all consonants, but some of these characters are considered vowels in modern day. They're not actually vowels in the ancient Hebrew. And there are less characters in Hebrew because the English alphabet has what, like 26 characters, and the Lashon Kodash has substantially less. We're looking at 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. 22 characters, so we're missing 4. Well, not missing 4. We're all we need is the 22. The Lord's name, Yahweh. I don't want to get too crazy with it today, but I want to at least cover this one time. Also, in the English, YHWH. It's called the Tetragrammaton. Which is just a fancy ass way of saying 4 grammar word or name. That's your grammaton. This right here is such a separate name from every other name that the Native American tribes that used to speak a very close version of the Lashon Kodash wouldn't even, and we got books that show this. We got books from the 1600s, the 1500s that actually talk about how the Native Americans would say the name of the Most High. They wouldn't even try to say it. I mean, because, one thing about the tribe of Gad is that they're so spiritual that they don't want to show any disrespect to what they call the Great Spirit in modern day and times. I'm doing some video editing on Navajo and some of their teachings that they're finally starting to come out with. You're going to be seeing some of the clips on our channel where I'm going to be breaking down some of the things that they're now saying publicly that tie right into the scriptures. That's going to be incredible. And sorry, y'all, I'm getting sick. That I highly recommend that you definitely subscribe to us on all of our platforms, whether it be TikTok, whether it be Instagram, Facebook, YouTube, and even Twitter. We're trying to get things going on Twitter. That you stay locked in with what we got going on, because we're going to be dropping a lot of clips. We're going to be dropping a lot of heavy information, behind the scenes coverage of the Passover, and of course coverage that we're allowed to put out there and everything like that when the full production is going in full force. So be on the lookout for that. Of course, we'd rather you be at the Passover first and foremost. And so you'll see the Passover feed on the top right of the screen for those of you that are going to be attending, that covers all of the events and also helps to keep this thing going and keeps the events as big and badass as they really are, because everybody pitches in on that, so that people that just so happen to show up that are not able to can still come in and do, you know what I'm saying, converge amongst the brethren and rehearse the righteous acts of the Lord. Now, before I go off on a tangent, these things mean something. This means arm. This character right here is like an arm, almost like a stick figure. You know what I'm saying? You got your little stick figure where it has the arm structure, right? More or less, this is like a rough example of like a hand that's attached to the arm. So it's not necessarily means hand, but it definitely means arm. Okay. And so the Most High's name begins with the character Yah for a reason, the arm. Okay. This right here means to reveal. This character here means to reveal. And the best way that I can think about how to remember that that's what it means, because it visually represents that, is almost like playing peekaboo. If you ever play peekaboo with a little kid, you're doing this right here where you're covering your face and then you're revealing the face, right? When you're doing that, playing peekaboo with a kid, well, reveal kind of looks like your hands that are coming together in the same way, where your fingers are actually covering something up, but then once they move, they reveal something. So the Lord's name has reveal in it twice. Which is never a small thing to mention. Whenever there's a character that's mentioned twice in any Hebrew phrase or any Hebrew name, rather, that's what you're going to see. Now, this means to join. To join. Or facet. And so when you just add it together, the Lord's name, again, the Native Americans, they used to say his name, Yah, 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 ha, 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 wah, 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 ha, ha, ha. Or they would break it down so that they wouldn't dare disrespect the Lord's name, because in their society, as righteous as they strive to be, they may have been humble enough to admit that they may not have had their entire culture, that they may not have had their entire collective brotherhood, because they had been scattered across different tribes. And so they felt like they were not worthy enough to say the Lord's name in its entirety. And so what they do is they would actually, and this is what they say, this is what was studied about them in these books that we've been reading and have been collecting, is that the Native Americans used to say the Lord's name in bits, but in it all together would say pretty much the same exact thing of what we're seeing right here, Yahweh. But they would pronounce it Yohiwa. So it was like, it's like you ever played the game telephone with the kids in elementary school, where you got like 20 kids lined up in a row, and one kid at the very end is given the task of saying a phrase to the person next to them. And then that person has to go and whisper in the ear of the person next to them that same phrase. And then somehow it starts off as one phrase here, but by the time it gets to the 20th child, it's like a completely different saying. It's like a completely different wording, or it may sound different. It may be pronounced different because each participant changed a little something, a little flair, a couple characters, or just the overall style and dialect that eventually made it change throughout time. And so Hebrew may have had a written language, but the pronunciation of some of the characters may have changed over time. And so kind of like playing telephone, we were working with that limited limitations of being a human, right? Communication kind of falling apart. And so by the time it got to the more modern era of Native Americans, or at least modern at the time of the Spanish conquest of America, they may have had some different pronunciations. And mind you, Israel had already gone through Assyrian captivity before even coming over here, where is the modern Hebrew became introduced, but the Hebrew that actually came to the U.S. is actually this Hebrew, which shows that they were trying to hold on to the original language. So the Lord's name visually represents the arm of revealing joined to a revealing. And so when you look at the definitions of his name is he is or he exists. But when you look at his name, and again, this is so important of learning our culture, learning our language, understanding our heritage, his name actually is saying the arm of revealing or creation. When you have something that's hidden, that is joined to another thing that is hidden, it's no different than what you read in the book of Genesis, chapter 1, where it says, in the beginning, there was it says, in the beginning, there was darkness, right? I may not paraphrase, I'm actually just going to read it to you. In the beginning, God created the heaven and the earth. Good night. God created, he used the arm of creation, basically. That's what that means. In the beginning, God created the heaven and the earth. So the thing, and it says, and the earth was without form and void, and darkness was upon the face of the deep. So again, it says without form or void. So the Most High's arm was what revealed a revealing, meaning different paradigms of existence. The Most High had control over all of those things. The things that we see and the things that we don't see and don't understand. The heavens and the earth. The Lord's name literally, visually represents the arm of creation. And so therefore, a good translation of a definition is he is or he exists. That's what you'll see in the Bible when it is used. All right. Or it'll just be considered the Most High. Some English Bibles may have certain times where it says Jehovah, but we know that Lashon Kodash doesn't have J's in it, so we won't really refer to him as that particular pronunciation. We'll just call him Yahweh because we're trying to get back the original dialect. So that's what we want to stick with. We don't want to try to add no flair to it, not try to do anything out of the box. We just want to go back to the original. Okay. So the Most High's name visually means the arm of creation. I'm going to give you a second to take a look at what's on the board, and then we're going to jump into verse 17. The Most High's name, you guessed it, the entirety of it is the root word. All right. Psalm chapter 83, verse 17. Yabashwa is the first phrase here. Oh, hold on. Let me be consistent. I gotta use the other marker. Yabashwa. Yabashwa, or Yabahalwa. So Yabashwa, and then we have Wa ya bahalwa. Wa ya bahalwa. Wa ya bahalwa. Again, we're going to break these down in a minute. Let me just go ahead and get them on the screen first. Ya bashwa. Wa ya bahalwa. Adya. Adya. And then Idya. Idya. And it says, Waya Parwa. Waya Kaparwa. It's another phrase right there. Waya Kaparwa. Waya Abadwa. Waya Abad. Wa. Waya Abadwa. Let's read what we got so far, and then we're going to start going into the vocabulary. Mala'a Panyaham Kwalawan Waya Bakwashwa Shamka Yahawa Yabashwa Waya Bahalwa Id Ya'id Waya Kaparwa Waya Abadwa Waya Da'aiwa would be next. Let's go back here and break it down now so we can get it. First, I'm going to actually write the translation. Okay. It's Yabashwa. It's the first phrase right there. Yabashwa says, let them be confounded. So, Bawash is the root word. This is actually it right here. But it's just Bash right here. The root word is Bawash. It's actually H954, which means to be ashamed, to feel shame, to be confounded, to be disappointed. To be. So the actual word is to be. So it says, let them be. At the end, your possessive adjective wa, at the end. Remember, when you see a wa at the beginning, that means and. But when you see a wa at the end, that means they or who. The character ya at the beginning here is basically saying let. Let. Yeah. Let them be confounded. Be confounded is the root word H954. Bosh. Or Bowash. But in this case, it's just Bosh because it's part of a conglomerate of words. I believe it would be Bowash if it was by itself. If that phrase was by itself. But it probably is not very commonly used by itself because it's used in the middle of a sentence. Waya Bahalwa would be our next one. Waya Bahalwa. H926. H926. This word right here, the root word is Bahal. Bahal. Boom. Bahal. That word means to tremble inwardly, to hasten anxiously. This is actually this got to be one of our main words actually for the day. H926. There's too many definitions here. I gotta cover all of them. Bahal. Bahal, which means to be dismayed. And dismayed. Notice that because we're still talking about them, there's still a wa that's added at the end of the phrase of characters. Okay, so we're tying all of these words that have a wa at the end that are adjectives or some kind of description of them. That it's basically saying, "Let them be confounded and dismayed." Okay, and so it's actually tying that in with them. Again, wa when it's used at a possessive adjective at the end of a phrase or on the left side of the phrase means they or who. Okay, not to be confused with them, but they, because them uses a ma at the end. Don't ask why. That's just what it is. Yabashwa, waya bahalwa. The word bahal means to dismay or to be dismayed. To be dismayed. This would be a good one to learn. Disturbed or alarmed. So when you're telling a story about somebody that tried to break into your house, you could say that the description of the family at the time that the house is being broken into is bahal, meaning that they were alarmed, they were disturbed. Whenever somebody's bothered about something somebody says, you can use the word bahal to describe the way that somebody is triggered by it. You understand? And even more so, it says to tremble inwardly. To tremble inwardly, meaning not just physically, but actually inwardly. Another word for that is anxiety. And it says to hasten anxiously. To hasten anxiously. Or to frighten or terrify. So bahal means to terrify, to dismay. It says, let their face fill their faces with shame that they may seek thy name, Yahweh. Let them be confounded and dismayed. And then it'll say forever and ever. So it's saying eye to eye. Forever. Eye ya eye. These are actually two different words. This is H5703, which means forever, I'd. And then this one right here, well, it's the same thing. So I'd, yeah. Forever, forever is what it's saying. And yes, let them be put to shame. And yes, let them be put to shame. This word right here, this is wayachaparwa. This is H2659. Root word here is kapar. Boom. Kapar. This word means to be ashamed, to disgrace, to confound, to reproach. Let me make sure the screen's still clear. Slide, y'all. Give me 1 second. Sign Christ. Kaparwa. Again, the word kapar means to disgrace. It says to shame. We'll just use what it says here, to shame. And yes, let them be ashamed. It's the same thing. And yes, let them be put to shame. And yes, let them be ashamed. This is the same, it's saying the same thing in the Hebrew. Waya abadwa. Now, this is another one here. This is actually, you want to know how important this word is? This is H6. It's not four characters in. No, it's not H5703. It's not H this, that, and what have you. It's literally H6. It's like the sixth Hebrew word, which means to destroy, to perish. And that word is abad. Abad. It says, this is going to be a vocabulary word for the day. Boom. All right. This word right here, abad. Abad. It means to perish. H6. Abad means to perish. To destroy. To lose. To be lost. That's crazy. To wander away. And then also to lose oneself. All of these are definitions of abad, which means to destroy or to be destroyed. And here we are using it in this phrase, Waya abadwa, which is a prayer that David is saying for all the other nations on the earth that have taken advantage of Israel, to brought them into their possession, to conglomerate against them, to create legislation against them. All of these things that show that they definitely don't have the best interest at heart of Israel. He wants them to be destroyed. That's what he's praying for. That's why it says, and perish. Waya abadwa. And again, if I'm being very specific, that let them be confounded should technically be repeated for all these characters that have that waya, and then y at the end. Ya bashwa means let them be confounded. Waya bahalwa should say and let them be dismayed. Waya kaparwa should say and let them be ashamed. And then when it says waya abadwa should also say and let them perish. Man, that look, my handwriting is terrible, y'all. I'm gonna try it again. Hold on. The reason why I'm writing it like this, and the reason why it's not exact with the English translation, is because Hebrew is not completely exact with the English translation. The King James Bible is the closest possible way that we can get it in English with the same flow and the same exact meaning. But the Hebrew itself and the rules that we're seeing actually show that it's saying, just like how it says, let them be confounded and let them be dismayed. It says, and let them be dismayed forever, forever. And yes, let them be ashamed and let them perish. That's why it's pronounced the way it is. Waya, and then the word, and then it ends with wa. This one just doesn't have a wa at the beginning because it is the first thing that is setting off this trail of situations happening to the nation. So it doesn't have the wa right here. It just says let them be confounded. Ya bashwa, and then and let them be dismayed. Ya wa ya bahalwa. Then it says, and let them be ashamed. Wa ya kaparwa. And then it says, and let them perish. Wa ya abadwa. So if we want to be even more specific so that we can see the consistency of how it's written in the Hebrew, let us be consistent in the way that we translate it so that we can better understand exactly how it's what it's actually meaning when you say it in Hebrew and why it sounds the way that it does. These aren't extra characters for the sake of being dramatic. They're just extra characters because when somebody is being passionate like this, they're going to give you the whole half of it. They're going to tell you, pray to the Most High over and over. It's like, this is exactly how black people speak when they're being passionate, is that they'll hit home with the same point and then reinforce it with a different way of saying it. Like dismayed and ashamed is kind of the same thing. Confounded, same thing, right? Perish, obviously, is the nail on the head, right? So that's the thing that they're doing right here. And so this prayer is very passionate, and it's a perfect example of how wrathful the children of Israel are and praying to the Lord that our enemies be destroyed. This isn't like y'all people try to say, oh, it's a hate group. No, it's just a truth group, bro. It's the truth. We don't care about what people feel. We care about what's true. And that's why when it says this in Psalm chapter 83, this chapter right here answers all the questions you have about quote unquote conspiracy theories. At one point in time, y'all called the conglomerate the Illuminati. At one point in time, and maybe possibly even today, they call it the deep state. They call it all these different things, the one world government. They call it all these different things, right? The shadow governments, the people in power, they, the man. All these different phrases refer to this scripture right here, which are the conglomerates that we mentioned in the previous classes: Edom, Moab, Ishmael, the big steppers on the earth right now that are in control. The Most High is allowing them to be in control, but for a specific time. And that's why prayers like this are ones that we hone in on and try to focus on every time we say the prayer, because we want to reinforce King David's prayer on the earth. I can't stress that enough. And then more specifically, when you go to Psalm chapter 83 and verse 1, and when it says, it says, a song of Asaph, which means to gather or to collect. Asaph, and this is just from the Strong's, just to give you an example. Asaph is a name used in the Hebrew Bible, primarily referring to a prominent Levite musician and seer in the time of King David. He is credited with several psalms, Psalm chapter 50, 73 through 83, and is recognized as one of the leaders of the temple. So he basically, his name means the gatherer, but Asaph was one of the chief musicians of King David. So Psalm chapter 83 is like a hip hop artist that was rapping about the apocalypse in the time of King David. You want to tell me that you want to rap about cars and clothes and hoes? Nah. These brothers were rapping about the destruction of the enemies of Israel. So if you want to actually spit something that matters, talk about that rather than talking about the destruction of your own people. It's like all the book of Psalms, just a major check on all the enemies of Israel and Jakes in the world, because they don't understand what music is actually supposed to be for. Music is a part of our warfare as a warrior-like nation of people. Music is a natural part of our warfare. So these prayers are a weapon against our enemies, because as we pray them, they begin to happen. Earthquakes start to happen. Fires break out. Our enemies don't understand that that's actually what's happening, because they don't believe in these types of things, because they'd rather be superstitious, or they'd rather hold fast to their sciences and the knowledge that they think that they have. But the truth is, the real Israelites say these prayers, these things come to pass, because more and more of us are starting to walk that righteous path to come out of the world and to not let these conglomerates confuse us anymore. Verse 18. Let's go ahead and finish off Psalm chapter 83. Psalm chapter 83, we're going all the way down to verse 18. This is the last verse of the entire chapter and the entire prayer, okay? So let's go ahead and get that. It says that they may know why Yah da Iowa Waya da Iowa. Kaya Atha. That you Waya da Iowa. Kaya Atha. Shamka. Yahweh. There it is. There go the Most High's name again. That's H6038. Yahweh. Alone. Labadka. Okay. Labadka. Ila Yawan. Ila Yawan. Al, which is I and a La put together. Al. Al Kalha. Technically, it's Al Kal Ha'arataza, but we'll just write it how it is here. Al Kal. And then it's Ha Arataza. That's excellent. That right there is, I'm going to break this down here in a minute. Give you all a little bit of time to write. Go ahead and get that on the screen. Make sure to share the class. Make sure to like, share. You know what I'm saying? Bookmark this. Definitely bookmark the playlist that we have all the Psalm chapter 83 breakdowns in. That's imperative. I highly recommend that. Give me 1 second here. I'm just going to make sure to share the class so y'all can see it. It's out there, man. All right, let me see. I'll give you a second to review that before we break it down and then finish things up for the day. I'll be right back in 1 second. All right, so let's go ahead and break it down now. Again, for those of you that may just be tuned in, Isupk San Antonio's Lashawan Kodash class, we're looking at basically the oldest language on the planet. which is the holy tongue. Lashon Kodash means the holy tongue. Where we're actually breaking down Psalm chapter 83, which is one of the Psalms of course, David's musical, what you say, his score of musical songs that he keeps to heart, because we understand that there are conglomerates of nations that want to come against Israel. Now, again, this is the funny thing about this is that people out there, the comment section on some of the videos that we put out there, and they're like, "Why are y'all acting like everybody's coming against y'all? Why are y'all trying to play the victim?" It's not about us playing the victim. It's about us recognizing that, yeah, there is a target on our backs, but also recognizing that that's what the Bible says. So why try to argue against it? The scriptures is clearly telling us that this is how they've kept a stranglehold on the whole planet up until this point. All right. Now we're going to go ahead and break this down here. Psalm chapter 83, verse 18, that they may know. The root word here is to know. To know. That word is yadai. Yadai. Why yadai? So like, yeah, not yadai. It's yadai. Yeah. Why yadai? Why? That they may know. This is H3045. If you want to look at your proofs, this means to know. So it says, and that they know. And that they know. Kaya, which means that. That's an important filler word. You should definitely know kaya. You can see that in a lot of sentences. That's H3588. The thou. Atha, we know, means you. Whose name, or basically Shemka, that you. Ka, when it's used at the end, where's it at? Your name, that you, your name. Yahweh. Labadka, alone. That should be the root word. Let me see. Bad. Boom. Yahweh. Bad means alone. Ka means you or your. So it says, and that they know that you, your name, Yahweh, you alone. That's the literal translation. So that's what I'm getting y'all. Giving y'all the literal translation from the Lashon Kodash. You're getting the full, no BS version of what it's saying as it's translated into English. You understand? This is incredible, man. To be able to actually see our language come back to life, to be able to pronounce it, to be able to read it, to be able to look at it and understand its meaning. I can't tell you of anything that's more fulfilling than knowing that this language has been hidden and brought back to us after so many generations. To be a part of the awakening of your people is literally the highest honor that an Israelite can have. And so taking part in putting your brick into the school and doing the things necessary to help build the kingdom of the Most High on the earth, these are all things that we should all be honored to be a part of, whether you're just a student in the class seeing this for the first time, a teacher in the school whose duties it is to spread this throughout the four corners of the earth. These are all things that we ought to take pride in, knowing that every bit of help that we all do to do this together gets the job done. You understand? And I'm going to use an example. A car going down an assembly line in a factory is not made by one person. It's made by a bunch of people that do their part, one right after another, and the job gets done because they all work together. Israel is one body under Christ. That's how we get the job done. H3068 is the Most High's name. Yahweh alone is H905. Almost done here, y'all. Art the Most High, Allah Yahwan. I La Yawan. Says the root word here, H5945, means Most High. And that is Allah Yawan. It's the whole thing, actually. The you alone, the Most High, okay? Over. I have it in brackets so you know where the root word is in all of these phrases. If you see a split here, that means it starts here and then finishes with the last word. And we'll read the whole thing once we're done. Kal ha'arataza. So all over is H776. If you need to break down on that, it just means, hold on, not that one. Hey, I put the wrong one. It's H5921. Over, against, concerning, beside, upon, over. This word can also mean against. So the Most High could be against all the earth. The Most High is over all the earth. This word right here, all, H3605. I put these numbers above every character so you could see that we're actually using the premier Strong's definitions when we're going over this. So this is standard, the standardized knowledge of it. We're just using the ancient dialect, which purifies it. You understand? So kal and then ha-arataza. The root word here is arataza. Ha means the. And then earth. Arataza. We've seen that enough, right? Everybody knows arataza by now. It means ground or earth. Kodar ha'arataza means dark unto the earth. When you read Jeremiah, was it 14:2? So understanding that in the Lashon Kodash, man, I'm telling you, this right here, this is what it's all about, yo. Because the way I would prefer is to have the entire prayer in the ancient Hebrew with none of this blue stuff, or just what you see in black. To have that on the wall that's on the east side of the school, so that when we read the prayers, we're actually seeing it in the Lashon Kodash, and then eventually you know how to read it. And you'll know what it says word for word because you have studied classes like the ones we've done here today. Let's go ahead and read the last 3 verses of Psalm chapter 83 to wrap up today's class. Finish off strong. We'll read it a couple times. Mala'ah, Panyaham, Kwalawan, Waya Bakwashwa, Shemka, Yahweh, Yabashwa, Waya Bahalwa, Aid Ya'ai, Waya Kaparwa, Waya Abadwa, Waya Da'aiwa, Kaya Ata, Shemka, Yahweh, Labadka, Aliyawan. That's what it is. Aliyawan. That's what it is. I'll put that connector right there. Aliyawan. Al-Kalha. See that? Al-Kalha Arataza. Al-Kalha Arataza. Basically, it's Al-Kalha Arataza. If you want to be specific, because that's the grouping term right there. What we just read was Psalm 83, 16 through 18, which says, fill their faces with shame or disgrace, that they seek thy name, Yahweh. Let them be confounded, and let them be dismayed forever and ever. And yes, let them be ashamed, and let them perish, and that they know that you, your name, Yahweh, you alone, the most high over all the earth. It is assumed that this means are. That you alone are the most high over all the earth. When we read it in English, it's assumed. His actual word, the Most High, is Al Yawan. Al Yawan. This is crazy too, because that's almost like the same thing as saying Al. Where's it at? Right here? No, I never mind. The Most High. Over and Al. You see how there's an Al right here and an Al right here? Most High means over all. That's crazy, right? Let's read it one more time to close out the class. For those of you that are tuning in, before we go over it one more time, I just want to give a shout out to Isupk San Antonio, Isupk all over the globe. You know what I'm saying? This awakening that's taking place throughout the lost 12 tribes of the nation of Israel is an exciting thing to be a part of. For those of you that have awakened to the truth and have an ear of listening to these things, we do this for y'all. You understand? Because we don't do this for ourselves. We know the things that we know. The scripture says, freely you have received, freely give. Because that's the only way that we actually all come out of this. But that has to be done genuinely and with the intent of helping our next person gain their spiritual strength so that they too can make the changes necessary to carry that on to the next generation. One more time. Psalm chapter 83, verse 16. Mala'ah, pan yaham, kwalawan, waya bakwashwa, shemka, yahawah, yabashwa, waya bahalwa, aid ya'aid, waya kaparwa, waya abadwa, waya da'aiwa, kaya atha, shemka, yahawah, labadka, al yawan, al kalha orataza. And again, that's the completion of Psalm chapter 83. It's been a hell of a journey because it's been 6 classes going them over word for word, precept upon precept, from verse 1 all the way through to verse 18. So that's going to be the end of it. We'll make sure to add this class to the end of the other classes so that you have the full playlist accessible on our channel. We'll make sure to share the full playlist on our channels across Twitter and across Facebook, you understand? So definitely check it out. If you're jumping in at the end, just know that there's all the classes that is led up to these last 3 scriptures, so you can catch all of them in chronological order on our YouTube channel where we have them organized in the playlist. I believe it's just titled Psalm 83, breakdown or something like that. So again, the water for y'all tuning in. Definitely tune in tomorrow for the Sabbath service. We're going to have the Sabbath service going. And with that, Yahweh Shem Yahushai Brakatah to all the brothers, or Brakatham to all the brothers, Yahweh Shemar Al-Tan Bahashem Yahushai to all the sisters. Again, this is the Isupk that started out at 1 West 125th Street, Harlem, New York in 1969 under Commanding General Yohana. Shalom.